So, good morning once again, everyone. So, welcome to our seventh edition of Workout Batch. So, let me get you started with telling you like how this batch works and how you can make the best use of this batch. So, like the name suggests, and I'm hoping that all of you are able to hear me properly, see the entire video properly. So I hope all that is working fine for you. And workout batch is quite different from any other regular batches that you would have attended. So in a normal batch, what we do generally, like if you ask me or anybody who's doing you would have attended classes, right? So you would find that we would go ahead and then explain you concept in an order such that we focus a lot of time on basics and then slowly layer up and then give you like advanced concepts, right? So workout batch does everything that the regular batch offers, but does it in a different format. So if you've attended regular batches, what you would miss is what the workout batch is trying to bridge. And what would be the miss? From regular batch to the examination, there is this practice and preparation that is required. Like applying everything that you have learned from the regular batches to the examination questions is something that you would have to practice. Now what workout batch does for you is that all that practice is required is being done through the batches. So I would say the workout batch is best utilized when you attend it live. Okay, I know that some of the people are taking it as recordings and they're putting all the efforts to write it down and then do in the same manner in which as if they are attending it live. But there is always that pinch of discipline that would be playing around in your mind if you're taking recordings. But if you're in live, I'm there, I'm watching all of you, so I want to ensure that all of you are working out together with me. So the prerequisite would be that carry a bottle of water, keep it with you, some notebooks to write, have your pen, pencil, calculator, everything arranged, because there is going to be a lot of workout. When you attend GST, initially you would feel like, oh, is it like theory subject? Is it like a practical subject? There's so much of concept that I have to learn. So would I be able to like apply these and then write and then learn? You would be able to do that only in workout batch. So that's the structure in which we are going to do. We're going to do a lot of working out. So carry a separate notebook and then start working out with me. So every time we do a question, we are doing it together, right? Then the second worry that you would have would be like, okay, so I have attended a class, I've given my examination, but unfortunately my results are not the way that I wanted it to be, but I want to make the difference by attending the workout batch. Now in that cases, you are worried that you forgot some concept. You don't have to worry there as well. There are multiple ways in which I bridge this. Now the easiest way to bridge this would be, see, when I'm taking a particular question, I will give you a quick run through of what concept I'm going to learn by this question and then go to the question. So we will give you that run around on the concept as well. In the way that you understand, you can ask all the questions in the chat box, you can ask all the questions in the group, because there is something called as peer learning. We have all our fellow learners that is attending live there in that group, so they'll be able to answer all of your questions there as well, or you can come to the Telegram and ask, or you can ask me directly. So either way, all that channel would be open to you to resolve your doubts, and I will be there with you throughout this journey. Okay, now I will give you each day schedule separately, so you can expect, if you want to keep a plan on the live part, so when this batch would be over and when will I get the completion of or conclusion of this batch. The batch is expected from today till end of this month, so we go around 20 days. If you compare the previous batches, we had like 2 days extra sometimes taken if the other timelines we are not able to keep. Sometimes what we do, if there is any day that we have missed out or any day that we did not have, we compensate it by keeping it in afternoon batches or batches after discussing with you, okay, after discussing with you, because you might have some other batches also going on, so not going to be a problem. Plus, all the classes that is being taken, the recordings will be available to you right after the classes. Right, so it's not going to be like end of the day and all that. Sometimes if there is a tech issue, otherwise I will finish the classes, upload the videos, and then leave the studio. That's the model in which I take these classes. Okay, so if at all you miss anything, do attend that immediately. Even if, okay, sometimes you might miss one class and you suddenly feel like, okay, I missed one class, now I have to go for the recorded mode. No, just join back in the next class. You can always attend the missed one later. Okay, so live, that's what you should keep it in your mind. Okay, I'm going to spare every day or the whole month, every morning I'm going to spare and then ensure that I attend the classes live. Okay, and my promise, at the end of this particular session, you will be much more confident that you will be able to score, like say, let's target 45 out of 50. That's our target. I'm not saying 50 out of 50. Let's keep 10% for ICI. Rest 45 should be in our pocket. That should be the method in which we do this. Okay. Are you all good with me? Can I have a quick giant yes on the chat box if you agree with this thought? Okay, perfect. Now let's come back to the question bank, the notebook, the chart book. So I'm assuming that some of you at least must have taken the color chart book with you, or you're coming from one of the regular batches, so you have the chart books, so you go through the same. There is no change in it. You have a question bank, because our regular batch question bank will be there with you. We will work out all the questions from there. Plus, I want to work out additional questions, right? So what I have done is that I have not changed my existing question bank, because if I change the existing question bank, everyone will have to order it again. So what I've done is that I've prepared the questions in 2 segments. Okay, so I'm going to give you some extra things in this particular batch. So you will have, I have drafted a lot more number of questions. So we'll work out everything from our question bank. Okay, so my strong recommendation, if you have the question bank, just keep the same one. Just start working out, refer from our answers. Now, if you don't have the question bank, maybe you can order it online. If you want the physical copy, it will take hardly 2 days to get you. Then additional questions, I'm going to give you PDF, downloadable, printable PDFs. Okay, so I'm going to call it as additional questions. Then case study MCQs, I'm going to keep a MCQ online test for you. And we will have midterm test, which means as in when I finish 2-3 chapters, we will have a test wherein you will have to write the answers. We'll keep all the tests to be like 50 marks, 50 marks, so that you get the same structure. So we can keep like 3 tests, like one is for the core segments, second one is for the computational segment, third one is for the procedural segment, and then we will have a final examination also being done. So ensure that, because it's just 50 marks, you can write it in 1.5 hours. An afternoon session you can allocate additionally for this, and then by the time you write all this, get it valued and all that, you will be like super confident. That's the thought process. Okay, now we will now I'm calling this as an introduction session, so we will go through the basic stuff and then try to get you an understanding. So let me before I go into the ABC analysis, that's what I generally start this thought with, but I wanted to give you a little bit of discussion on what is there for JAN examination. Because if there is somebody who has attended September examination and then going to JAN examination, you might be having this thought, because it's indirect taxes and GST, you might be having this thought, is there a lot of amendments? Not a lot of amendments. I'll tell you how the structure now works. Okay, so let's specifically talk about JAN exam. Jan 2025 examination. So Jan 2025 examination, since the inter exam has been moved to 3 exam, now the amendment structure also has been modified by ICAI. They said for every exam 6 months prior to the starting month, will be applicable. That will be your syllabus. Right? So when I say 6 months prior to starting month, which means your amendment stops on 30th June 2024. So whatever amendment that we had till 30th of June 2024 will be applicable to your exam. So if you look at your September exam, they've already tested you amendments till 28th February, right? They've already tested you for February, and whatever is there from February to June will be an additional amendment to learn. In our workout batch, we will cover all of this. Now, I will not only cover this additional amendment, I would keep whatever amendment happened in last 12 months prior to 30th of June. That whole 1 year, whatever changes has happened, will become part of our special discussion. So I would call all that as amendment, because 2 attempts amendment is what they generally test in an exam, not just that, okay, whatever is there in the last exam. Now, if you are somebody who studied using ICA material, from ICA material to whatever that you have to now prepare for your examination, there has been an extra set of amendments, because ICA has not updated books for a while. So you can go to ICA website and download. You can go to ICA website and then download. There is an amendment applicable, statutory update applicable for Jan examination. There's a PDF. Take a printout of that, and then if you're reading ICA material also, read it together with it. Each chapter wise amendment you will find there. If you're reading our chart notes, then there is nothing to worry that whatever is amended is included there, and whatever is extra we will discuss in the classes itself. All right. This is the structure that we have. Now, is there so much of amendments? No, it is not there. Most of the amendments that is going to be tested, most of the amendments that are bigger happened from 30th of June later onwards, because in July and in September there are 2 GST council meeting that has happened, which made a bunch of decisions, and the previous council meeting was not happening because of the election. So we don't have much of changes to learn for Jan exam compared to September exam. However, from Jan exam to May exam, there are a bunch of amendments that we will have to learn. Okay, so that's going to be one examination. The May 25 would be one examination where a bunch of additional amendments are to be learned. Okay, so but we are planning to finish off our taxation paper and the group and CA Inter by Jan, right? So we don't have to bother anything about it. Okay. Now let's look at what is there in our syllabus. I've given you a ABC analysis to look at. Now, if you look at when we initially learn our subject, we generally go from chapter number 1, which is like introduction. If I was the one who was taught you the GST, the basics, I would have taken like probably 10 hours to teach you the basics of GST, and I would have given you comparisons and everything. We generally go 100 plus hours to give you full lectures. So that's a very long discussion that happens while we start our discussion, right? Now if you look at if you look at after you learn this once, should you go ahead and then start learning, like say for example the introduction chapter, should you go ahead and then learn this introduction chapter again for 10 hours to prepare for your exam? No. The order in which you will have to study GST paper changes. The moment you learn GST as a paper in your regular classes, now when you start preparing for your examination, I have changed the order here. Okay, so if you look at, I have changed the order and I have put it like rank A, rank B, rank C. Now I'm telling you the reason why I made this particular classification. The reason is that once you learn the basics, now there is no need for you to go in the same order. Instead, we have to change the order. So we're going to do the order based on our ABC analysis. What is ABC analysis? I'm pretty sure all of you are aware that not every chapter has the same importance for your examination. So you spending the same amount of time for all the chapters, same amount of time for all the chapters might not be a right approach to make. So instead what you should do is that you should go ahead and then spend maximum amount of time to look at those chapters which are 100% sure that will be tested in the examination, and that is being marked as a rank A. Rank B is tested in like once in 2 examination for a lot of marks. Then rank C would be like, okay, it is tested in like once in 4 examination. Okay, now this is the order in which, I'm not saying any of these are not important, and I don't think it is wise for you to skip any of this. You should learn end to end for GST, because GST is a small paper. You will be able to comfortably do it. Now you have taken already the step, you attend all the classes, you have covered everything. Okay, so you don't have a problem. So only thing that you have to do is don't push yourself, make yourself get up early and then be there in the classes, make notes everywhere, keep writing. That's all you'll have to do. Alright. So I'll tell you, we know that there are, in our syllabus there are 15 chapters, right? So I've classified them into 3 categories. Now if you look at, I have given the category called A, B, C, and I have given the first category AAA. What is AAA category? Any amendments that you have in your syllabus would be AAA category. Why am I calling this as AAA categories? Because now how the amendment should be approached in GST is that, say for example, there is an amendment that is there in block to credit, section 17.5, the concept where you are not eligible to take credit in certain purchases. There is an amendment, assuming. Now not only that amendment point you should remember the whole block to credit in better understanding. Why? Because when they test you on that amendment, they are not going to test you only with that point. They will also take peripheral point or supporting points from the other areas. So if there is an amendment in a chapter, there is an amendment in a specific learning or a section, the entire section becomes important, because they are going to connect and then give you some understanding of it. Are you guys understanding? Okay. Now, what are the chapters which comes under rank A? I said like there are 15 chapters, right? So in that I picked up 5 chapters plus some additional areas, category A or rank A, apart from amendments. All amendments are AAA, like you should not miss any amendments. It's the easiest way is to learn the last 12 months amendment is to go ahead and then look at ICA material and take from there, or I'll give you a separate amendment chart book. Amendment chart book I'll give you, downloadable, printable PDF. If you want, you can take a color print and then keep it with you. Only those things which are there in our books, but it's separately. Okay. So look at this. Now rank number A is given for those chapters which I consider should be covered first. Okay. Rank B is also important. Okay. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's rank A is very important ones. Now I always tell people that your understanding of GST would mainly depend upon this chapter called charge chapter. Now, I will give you a lot of understanding about charge chapter. Now, we will do a lot number of questions also in charge chapter, but I am telling you that how good you are in charge chapter would determine how good you are in the entire GST understanding. So, as and when we learn GST, ensure that you are like, okay, focusing fully on charge, you know end to end of charge. 360-degree understanding is what is required. If you have 360-degree understanding of charge chapter, then I can say you're mostly sorted in this particular subject as such. Alright, then. Now let's look at the next one. As and when you learn charge, there is an area called e-commerce operator, right? 9 subsection 5 says that where are the cases where e-commerce operator has to pay taxes. Okay, so that's also a charge. There are certain cases where charge is given to e-commerce operator, like your Uber, Ola, your Swiggy, Zomato, all of these are liable to pay taxes in certain cases. We will learn that, we will look at questions. So while we learning that, there is another provision that is applicable to your typical e-commerce operator called tax collected at source. Okay, section 52 of CGST Act. What we will have to do is that while we learn charge chapter, we club this TCS provision also, but TCS is given in another chapter. It's given in payment chapter. Now TDS TCS chapter has separate learning on TDS and TCS, but what we will do is that we will take TCS, attach it with charge. So considering that a lot of e-commerce companies are there in India, it's very likely that ICA will be thinking, okay, I might want to ask a question. Okay, so the connected learning can be there. Also, TCS is something that is introduced only with the new scheme of syllabus in Inter. It was only there at final syllabus, but now it's there in Inter also. So I prefer that we learn TCS together with charge. Then, so the second chapter that I'm going to discuss is value of supply. Now, if you look at value of supply, this is one chapter which we can learn standalone. Now, normally the problem with GST is that when you learn GST, you need to have connected learning. Like say, supply chapter should be connected with charge chapter, should be connected with exemption and ITC. Right? Because they'll ask you one question which is covering all of this. But value of supply is one chapter you can even learn standalone. So we'll start with value of supply chapter only in our workout batch, because we can finish it off faster. We can say that we have covered one chapter in rank A. We have written enough questions, all that we can say in value chapter. So we'll finish all the questions in value chapter first. Okay, but it's type rank A category. Then time of supply, it's a very easy chapter. We will a lot of date computation, and we will go through that time of supply chapter after that. Then ITC, very important chapter. Then exemption. Now exemption, our understanding would be slightly different because exemptions are a lot. So if you don't remember exemption, I'll not be able to take you through the workout. So I'll do 2 ways learning for exemption. I'm going to give you some recorded sessions for exemption, if only for those people who feel like, okay, exemption I need a full run around because I forgot most of exemption. I'll give you the full batch recorded available for exemption chapter. What you do is you watch the entire exemption chapter, then come for the workout of the exemption chapters. And if you are somebody who's like, okay, I've gone through exemption chapter, I've gone through a chart note, so I'm confident about it, I can go and then start solving questions with you, then we will have the workout directly. So I'll tell you how the schedule should work. So that's why what I generally do, I'll give you like day 1, 2, 3, like what will I cover on day 1, 2, 3, like each one you can prepare like that. Then rank number B, which is the second category of chapters. Okay, so why rank A? There's also one more reason. You can see that I have written something here. I have written full net GST questions. If you learn this first 5 segment of learning, that is charge, TCS, value of supply, time of supply, input tax credit, exemption, you will be able to go out and then do full length questions on net GST computation. That 10 mark kind of questions can be resolved for you. Then rank number B. Rank number B is for chapters like place of supply, TDS, registration and supply. Place of supply and TDS. Place of supply and TDS, these 2 areas can be clubbed together and then learned, because you can learn TDS only after you learn place of supply, because one TDS provision is basically based on place of supply. Place of supply is also an additional chapter that has been introduced only with the new syllabus. So I believe that place of supply will also be tested for a while, a lot, and then they will go lower with it. And then it will become like part of net GST question. There will be something on place of supply that they will cover. Then place of supply is something that you will have to remember. So summary charts would be very helpful there. Registration being tested extensively. Supply chapter, even though it is like huge segment of discussion when you learn the regular, in our workout batch, supply would be taken as the second category of discussion. Then we go to rank C. Rank C is very important for you. I'll tell you the reason. Normally when you learn GST, diminishing marginal utility curve kicks in. You know what is diminishing marginal utility curve, right? You start learning very much in detail for chart chapter and value chapter and time of supply, ITC, and then slowly go down on your preparation on procedure chapter. People don't prepare or less prepare on procedure chapter, because in classes also it would have been last few days of discussion. So slowly you will think that hey, it's gonna be over, so I will do something about it, or it's not very important. Now it's rank C, but there are few rank A areas inside this rank C. So for example, invoice chapter due date is something that we're going to learn together with time of supply. It's a very important area to discuss. Then we have discussion like e-invoices, dynamic QR code can be tested extensively. The documents can also be tested because of few amendments. So ensure that you have full clarity on rank C also. Okay, so we will discuss, we'll look at all the questions, all the sections. It's easy to go through. Payment chapter, you have interest and you have different discussions on how you transfer the amount from ledgers. So section 50 would be important there, section 49 also would be important there. Then return chapter, you have GSTR1, GSTR3B, QRMP to learn, late fees to look at. All these areas are actually important inside return chapter. Then e-waybill, once in like 3-4 exam, they'll ask one question for 3-4 marks on e-waybill. So we'll go through that in full. Accounts and records, only 2 areas can be tested. So that we will do. We will look at questions and what kind of questions they can test you. Then at last it is introduction to GST. So hardly I'll give you an MCQ segment to work out on introduction. So that's how the ABC structure of our discussion would go. Okay, so this is the order in which we're going to cover the entire GST discussion. Now let me put you through the questions that you will have. We know that GST has multiple questions. One would be case study MCQ, 15 marks or 30%. Then we have descriptive. In descriptive, what are the type of questions you have? You have direct theory questions, which is like, okay, write the features of this, what are the activities done by this, write a short note on this person, write what is dynamic QR code, what are the benefits of dynamic QR code, what is the benefits of e-waybill. These kind of questions are direct theory. Now generally they ask one segment of question on direct theory. I would suggest you learn the theories from our chart notes. And whatever past exam questions I have given in the question bank. Out of this direct theory question, one question would be from amendments. That's a smart way of looking into it. If you look at and learn the amendment area, we can say, okay, this is what can be tested as a theory question there. So one question is from there. But most importantly that you have to remember that one question that you have in your examination, which is direct theory, you can actually take a choice on option, because you will be given generally in the segment of our discussion, you can find that you will be given 3 10-mark questions and out of that only 2 needs to be written, except from the compulsory question, which is 15 marks. So if you look at compulsory questions are generally computational questions. Now in those 3 questions that you can choose and then write only 2, if you are confident on the other areas, you can always skip the direct theory one and then go to the other areas. So that's also an option that you will have to smartly plan. Okay. So, but you need to have that bait saying, okay, what if I don't know one of those other areas of computation? Then it's better to write the theory, because that will give you at least some marks. Okay, so be very smart about it. I will play you around with this kind of questions while I am doing the model exams. Then, okay, so direct theory, then you have something called as practical theory. Practical theory, we will do question practice and then learn, because there are a lot of provisions where they ask you some scenario, then connecting back to a provision and then asking you to comment on it, check the validity of the statement. There will be some advice given by somebody and you will have to validate the advices. This is how they generally ask you that question. So that also needs to be answered. Now the third one would be numerical or date based. Now let's look at what kind of questions you can have here. GST, we can even list down, okay, you will have these many questions only. Number 1, their favorite question, computation of net GST payable. See, normally what happens, say I'll compare this GST with income tax. Okay, in income tax what happens is that first you learn one heads of income, then you learn another heads, then you learn another head, then you learn chapter 6 deductions, you learn TDS, TDS, so whatever extra things, so carry forward and all that, then you go to total income. In GST we can directly go to the total income kind of a part, net GST computation. So we go to the climax of the movie, then come back and then give you the understanding of each of it. So that's the difference in GST, because when to compute net GST payable, you can even have all the other chapter being relevant. Okay, but how to do the net GST computation we learn first. Then we go each chapter and then make your learning better. This is one classic question that you have. Generally the compulsory question 10 marks and all is net GST computation, but they will club all the other chapters. Then you have a numerical question on computation of taxable value of supply. What is the taxable value of supply? This is from the valuation chapter, which is purely on like, okay, they'll give you some value, you'll have to decide whether it should be included in the taxable value or not, and then decide what is the taxable value. Third one, computation of ITC eligible. This is another type of question that you will have. They'll ask you to compute input tax credit. So when you're going for the exam, you should have answer for all these kind of questions. Next, computation of aggregate turnover. Your aggregate turnover computation can be either for composition levy scheme questions, or it could be for registration computation. So both ways they will ask you some questions on aggregate turnover computation. These are basically 4 type of questions that you have on computations. There is also a date based question, which is based on time of supply and sometimes you get questions on due dates and some computation of interest. So we can basically say that only 6 type of questions would come in terms of computation. So if you know how to compute net GST, taxable value, ITC, aggregate turnover, time of supply, due date, interest, you mostly sorted in GST. Looks very simple, right? Very simple. Only these many things to learn. All your computations are over. But to compute net GST, they can test you from a lot of provisions. So you basically are learning what is your syllabus. You can put it like this. Say you have CGST Act. Your learning starts from section 7, goes till say section 52. Out of this, probably around 30 sections are only applicable for you. Some sections are not even there. Okay. Then you have IGST Act. You have like countable section. IGST Act altogether has only 25 sections. Out of that you have section 7, 8, 9, 10 and 12. These many sections you have. And all related sections have some notifications and some circulars. And all these cases, sometimes you will have very small number of rules also to learn when you wanted to do computational. But then rule number and all you don't have to remember. Okay, that's all your syllabus is. So GST is not really big in your inter syllabus. Okay, final it's quite big. You'll have to learn all the procedural aspect, appeal, revision, everything. Here it's only the fundamental basics. Or they're also going to test you like, okay, after learning GST from inter syllabus, are you able to go ahead and then apply that in your articleship training? That's all. With me? Okay. So this is what we're going to cover. We will be having like full out learning about everything, but our approach is different. Okay. So shall we start with our first topic? Can I have a quick yes on the chat box from everyone, okay, to know that you're there. Okay. Our first learning it is connected with section 49, 49A, 49B. You have rule 88, 88A. All of this is going to be relevant, but what we are going to learn is manner of utilization of credit to compute net GST payable. Manner of utilization of credit to compute net GST payable. Like, see, I'm directly hitting the climax, and then we will come back to all the basic learnings. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you the very basic understanding. So, just to get you a reminder of how, the net GST computations we generally do. Right? Shall we do that? Okay. So, our first learning is very simple. So, if you have the chart book, I'm basically looking at chapter number 1 in our chart book. In your ICA material, this is there in payment chapter. So, our very fundamental learning. What is the manner of utilization of credit? Okay. So, in GST, what is the periodicity in which payments are to be made to the government? Every registered person. Registered person means he will have what number? GST identification number. Has to pay, let's use the word remit, GST to the government on a what basis? What is the periodicity in which generally they make payment? Monthly. Very good. Monthly. But in one case alone, only in one case they can make quarterly payment. What is that case? When somebody who is having a GST number paying GST only on a quarterly basis. Composition levy scheme. Brilliant. Except composition levy scheme. We generally call them as composition levy scheme or CLS. Okay. So, when they are making payment on a monthly basis or remitting GST on a monthly basis, it means that they have made some outward supply. So, their sale, their service, all these are called as when they make sale to the customers, like you and I, when we go and purchase from someone, we would pay them GST, which they will collect. They are supposed to pay to the government, right? When I am a registered person in GST, when I sell goods or services to my customer, I will collect GST, which will create what liability for me? What is the term? When I am making sale or services to the customer, I would call this as outward supply. I am taking it very slow because I wanted to ensure that if you have not had the clarity, this should be a fundamental learning for you. In GST, the supply to customer is called as outward supply, which will create me an outward tax liability. Right? It will create me an outward tax liability. So, when I make an outward supply, I will have an outward tax liability. But should I pay this in full? Should registered person pay entire GST collected? No, the answer is big giant no, because they are eligible for input tax credit, ITC. When will they have ITC? Whatever taxes they paid on their inward supply will be called as input tax credit. They are eligible for ITC on inward supply. So, whenever I am talking about monthly they have to pay GST, what GST am I referring to? Net GST. So, how will I compute what is the net GST payable by cash? every registered person will have purchases. I paid GST on the purchases, and whoever has sold me goods or services has paid it to the government. Government is going to allow me to take it as credit. Whatever taxes I collected is my outward supply. My net GST payable by cash would be nothing but outward tax liability minus input tax credit. Now it's very easy formula that we have here. However, we had opted for what model of GST in India? What model of GST? We have dual GST model. Because of that, we have how many GSTs? On our supply within the state, intrastate supply means supply within the state or union territory. I have what GSTs? CGST plus SGST, and on my interstate supply, that is between the states, I have what GST? IGST. Right? Right. So I will have three type of GSTs in my dual GST model. One is CGST, another is SGST, another is IGST. I similarly will have, when I make purchases within the state, I would have paid CGST, SGST, IGST. And can I set off all my credits? So we can simply put it like this. Every registered person in GST will have three type of liability. What are the liabilities? One, when I sell within the state, I would have collected from the customer CGST, SGST. When I sell outside the state, I would have collected from the customer IGST. So three liabilities to pay to the government. Similarly, if I purchase within the state, I have CGST, SGST paid to the person who sold the product to me. So if I make purchases in my bill, if I have CGST, SGST, that means that I paid CGST, SGST on my purchase. So I will not say that I have GST credit. I would say I have CGST credit, I have SGST credit. Understanding? Then, if I purchase from another state, whatever I have on the bill would be IGST credit. So I would say that I will not say that I have GST credit, I will say I have IGST credit. So I can have CGST credit, SGST credit, IGST credit. I can have CGST liability, SGST liability, IGST liability, because these are paid to different government. CGST is paid to central government, SGST is paid to the respective state government. If I am in Tamil Nadu, I would pay SGST to Tamil Nadu government. If I am in Kerala, I would pay SGST to Kerala government. Likewise, I have different GSTs paid to different governments. Now, the next question would be, then how do I compute how much I need to pay as cash on a monthly basis? Right? So CGST is paid to central government, SGST is paid to state government, IGST is paid to central government again. Central government will transfer 50% of that to consuming state government. There's a concept like that. Let's keep all that basics aside. Let's try to focus on what is there in front of us, which is how do I find out how much is the net GST payable? And we had a table to understand that. What is the table says? Is it, this is the manner in which I can utilize my credit. This is very important for our exam. We should ensure that you have this learning, and we should do questions only approaching this. Okay, because it's super important for us. Okay, now look at this. I cannot utilize all my credit. There is a manner of utilization of credit. Okay, now this is what you will look at, if you are having the textbook, you are at page number 6 and looking into what is the manner of utilization of credit, and I am going to write it in our method of charts. Okay. So I am saying that you have 3 type of liability, 3 type of credit. What are my 3 liabilities? I have IGST liability, CGST liability, SGST liability. I have 3 type of credit: IGST credit, CGST credit, SGST credit. Now what will I set off against what is the first question. Now my rank number 1 would be to set off, I will take IGST credit, I will set off against IGST liability. If I have balance, can I set off IGST credit against CGST and SGST? Yes. The law says what? You can set off in any order, right? It says any order. This is where the first twist comes in your exam. What is this twist? The law says after I set off IGST against my IGST liability, whatever extra IGST I have, I can set off against any CGST or SGST, any liability that I want to. So I suppose my IGST credit is 1 lakh. My IGST liability is only 50,000. So first I take this 50,000 from the 1 lakh, set off against IGST. Now I have this extra 50,000 credit. Where will I set it off? The law says if you want to fully utilize it for CGST, you can do it. Fully utilize it for SGST, you can do it. But that is only law says. Is ICAI okay with it? Is ICAI saying that you set it off like you wish? No. The ICAI has a, even though the law says any order, ICAI says that you should ensure that you get what liability? Minimum GST cash liability, because you're all going to be finance managers. As a finance manager, your responsibility or your commitment to a company is such that you will go ahead and then create them least cash liability. Why? We will discuss. Now let's go ahead with this. So we know that it can be set off in any order, but in exam we will look at the least liability. Okay. Then after you finish off your IGST, then only you can go for other credits. So there's a provision which says that only after IGST is fully utilized, other credits can be utilized. So which means that if you have IGST credit pending, you will not be able to directly jump to the other credit. Okay, so you will have to finish it off. Then what will you do? So we can call this as rank number 2. After rank number 1 IGST, IGST, then rank number 2 would be IGST against CGST or SGST in any order. Then CGST can be set off against what? Can I set it off against CGST? Yes. So let's call it as rank 3. Then can I set off CGST against IGST? Yes, rank 4. Can I set off CGST against SGST? No, that is not permitted. Then SGST would be set off against SGST, that is rank number 5. This is the order in which you will go. Then SGST will be set off against IGST, that is rank number 6. Is SGST allowed to be set off against CGST? It is not permitted. This is the manner of utilization of credit. Very simple, straightforward manner of utilization of credit. Let's look at this once again. Let's read it once again just to ensure that we are all in same page. Can we do that? Can I have a quick yes? So we do it in the classes, we're going to shout it out, so your family is going to feel like, okay, what kind of noise is coming out of from your room? Is he learning online, or is he or she like to be in the classes and shouting out? So let's do that. Okay, so like we do it in the classes. Okay, so what is the manner of utilization of credit? Number one, IGST will be louder all of you. IGST will be first set off against IGST, then will be set off against CGST or SGST in any order. Then can I go to other credit? No, there is a note. Can we all read the note loud and clear? Only after IGST is fully utilized, other credit can be utilized. With me? Okay. Then we go to CGST. CGST will be first set off against CGST, then set off against IGST. What about CGST, SGST? Not permitted. Then SGST will be set off against SGST. Then SGST will be set off against IGST. SGST against CGST is not permitted. Are you guys understanding? Okay. Now, I am going to give you an examination tip. Okay. If you are not knowing how to do the set off, or you are confused on okay, what ICAI wants to do, you follow this. That's a tip. Okay. Now let's look at the examination tip here. Even though excess IGST can be utilized to pay CGST or SGST liability in any order, for examination minimum GST liability by cash to be arrived. What to be arrived? Minimum GST liability by cash to be arrived. How will I do this? Step number 1. Okay. What is step number 1? IGST credit will be set off against IGST liability. I will do IGST credit against IGST liability. Then, how will I ensure minimum GST liability? How will I ensure minimum GST liability? Step number 2. Fill the gap. What do you mean by gap here? Fill the gap in CGST, SGST. What is the gap? The gap means CGST liability minus CGST credit. Or SGST liability minus SGST credit. If you do this, you will always create the least liability. What do you have to do? Ensure that after you do IGST against IGST, you will have to fill the gap. That's all you have to do. Okay. We'll do questions. Now, if you're not minding the gap first. Okay. Fill the gap of CGST, SGST liability first. Step number 3. After the gap is filled, if further excess IGST is available, it can be utilized in any order. It will not affect the net GST. So, only thing that you have to be worried is that ensure that you fill the gap first. Without filling the gap, don't jump into other credits. If you fill the gap first, then you will always get minimum GST liability. It's very easy to tell fill the gap, but only when we do the questions, you will get that real understanding. Okay. Shall we look into a very basic question just to ensure that we know how to compute net GST? We'll do a question from our question bank itself. No new questions. We will take the very simple basic question itself. Shall we? Okay, let's take one question from our question bank. Let's take a simple straightforward question. Yeah, we'll take our basic question itself. Let's do question 21 from our question bank. Okay, so if you have the question bank, you go to page number 136, you will find question 21 in value chapter. So let's do that question. It's a simple straightforward question, but we will try to, in case you've forgotten anything, I'm just trying to straighten things up because we need to do advanced questions. So to do that, just to get it started, shall we? I'll read the question for you. If you have the question bank, you can take it there. Otherwise, you can read it from the screen together with me. Okay. Mr. NY, a supplier of goods, pays GST under regular scheme. So what is the meaning of regular scheme? They are not under what scheme? They are not under composition levy scheme. If all they are under composition levy scheme, then the computation would be slightly different. So they are saying they are under regular scheme. Mr. NY is not eligible for any threshold exemption. he has made the following outward taxable supplies during September. So they are not under composition, they are registered, they are not eligible for any threshold exemptions. They made outward supplies in September. They have two product A, product B. They are making both intrastate and interstate supply. Product A is taxed at 12%, which means CGST is GST 6 and 6. And product B is taxed at 18%, CGST is GST would be 9 and 9. So they have given you the information how much they sold to the customer. So whatever outward supply that they have, they would have collected GST from their customers. So whatever outward supply they have, they would have created outward tax liability, right? On their outward supply, they have created outward tax liability. Now, not only this outward tax liability, they have also furnished following information. They have given you the amount of outward supply and they have given you the GST rate. So it's very easy for us to compute outward tax liability from this. He has also furnished the following information in respect of supplies received by him during September, which means supply received means what supply? It's an inward supply. Now they have given you particulars, rate of taxes, amount. There is product A, product B there. So the same tax rate, if you apply, you will know whatever taxes they have paid in purchases, which would create them input tax credit. Now they have given Mr. NY has following ITC with him at the beginning of September. What do you mean by beginning of September they have ITC? Which means that in the previous month they had more credit, which is more than what they had as liability. What will I do when I have more credit than my liability? I would call this as excess credit. In the next month, I am making GST payment monthly, right? Next month, I can utilize this credit. Say last month I had purchases where I paid 1 lakh as GST. That month I had no sale. That 1 lakh will be carried forward to the next month. That month I will utilize this as opening credit. So every month, in every question, you have to always look at if there is any opening credit. If you have an opening credit, you will have to add this opening credit to your purchase credits. So I can have carry forwarded credit, I can have purchase credit. So both of these credit can be there. So I can utilize this credit against my outward tax liability. Balance needs to be paid in cash. While I am computing this to be balance paid in cash, I have to be very sure that I am utilizing in such way that I get minimum GST by cash as the answer. Why? We will see. We will also see how we will do that. So continue to read the question. All conditions necessary for availing ITC has been fulfilled. Compute net GST payable by Mr. NY for the month of September. Make suitable assumptions wherever required. Shall we start working out? So any computational question that we write, so we are trying to do the first category of questions. Any computational question that you write, we need to have a title. So what will be the title here? I can write the computational heading as computation of net GST payable or minimum GST payable. Either way would work. So let's write our normal one only. Net GST payable by Mr. NY. We will always write the month for September, because in a later question they can give you some information not relevant for September. and still we will have to make an answer. So computation of net GST payable by Mr. NY for September 20XX.